Guys, listen, man. Listen, Tom Arnold here. And now it's time for my favorite podcast, Milkshake.
Milkshake. Milkshake. Milkshake.
Listen, man. Let me tell you something. Tom Arnold here. And now it's time for my favorite podcast. And believe me, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Milkshake, starring Randy Rays and Jeff Rimmer. Take it away, boys.
Milkshake.
Episode 7, Milkshake, man. I didn't think we'd live to see this day of making it this far, so.
No, I thought for sure they would cut us off at 6, probably 3 actually, but somehow we've evaded the law, and we're back. So, hey, now I'm ready to go, man. What's our topic this week, Jeff?
Yeah, so we're doing top 5, as always, and it ends up being like a top 12 or, 8 or how many ever honorable mentions we do in the process. But top 5 Americans, we specifically put Americans.
God bless America.
America, that you would want to invite to dinner and a milkshake at your house. And we threw in a milkshake. Could care less if you have a milkshake or not, but it makes sense with our name, dead or alive. And I think when we explain them, we should say which era. So if this person was in different eras, which era of this person do you want to invite to make it, a little bit more interesting and detailed?
No, that's beautiful. We will not have any overlaps tonight because I went a certain direction with this that will not. There's no way. We might have one that overlaps, but you'll see which way I'm going with it. I can't wait to hear your top 5, and I love your feedback on why you pick people. So I might handle you with some questions.
I don't know. I feel like we're going to have one. All right. You're confident.
We might, but if we have one, I would be shocked. But it's only because I went outside my box, and I'll explain why I picked these folks and what I'm doing and why I went this route. But I wanted to go a certain route with the top 5 Americans, and God bless America. And but I did it on purpose, a different way than most people would probably do it. And I assume you went in a way that you were thinking about the past 250 years of America. And,
no. I didn't at all do it that way.
Oh, no, we could be in trouble.
But
I know we don't. I know just because of my passions are a little different than yours. And when I'm inviting folks over, I want it to feed my needs. So I know they're different than yours. It's not a generational thing at all this time. It's just
no.
passions.
Now I'm super curious. And honestly, out of all the existence of Americans that have ever existed, I used existence and existed together in a sentence, which was great. All of the people that have ever, if we do have the same one, there's something wrong with this. I mean, it's one thing with songs or films or TV shows. Like last week we had the same number 1, we had Eminem together and whatnot. But if we do have the same one, out of all the peoples in this country that have been in existence of it, then we really did take a deep dive. And I'll be honest, I didn't take a deep dive back. I tried to, but there's not a lot of cool people I wanted to party with that were way, way back that I knew about.
And that's the problem, because when you go through the last 250 years of America, there's a lot of folks that you could have at the table, right? And drink a milkshake with. I'll start off by just telling you that I decided, okay, if I was president in November, if I won the election because I'm the only one who doesn't have Alzheimer's, my first thing in January when I took over, I'd have dinner and I'd have 5 people over. And these are the 5 people that I want to sit around the table as president of the United States and kind of pick their brain where none of the information discussed in that room goes outside that room. So I'll get a good feel for, how their careers went, what they thought, what they saw, just because I'm so intrigued by these people and what happened behind the scenes. So that's kind of the angle I took.
All right. I like your angle because my angle is nowhere near trying to be a president, invite people over and picking their brains. It was more so of who would I honestly want to hang with?
Yeah, no, it's who do I want to have a beer with? And
okay.
I can tell you that my 5, I would love to drink a beer and just BS with every one of these folks on this list. But then I've got like 20 honorable mentions that I'd like on that list. And then I've got some historical folks that I'd still love to hear from. But we'll get into the honorable mentions maybe afterwards, because
I only have one.
You only okay. Well, just tell me who your honorable mention is, because I know it won't be on my list.
Yeah, my honorable mention, they're still alive and they're doing well in life, is Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl is a dude I just have a lot of respect for. I don't even want to meet celebrities. I don't have a desire, don't care, other than you. That was the only celebrity I ever wanted to meet. But I don't care about stuff like that. Exactly. And I got your autograph, so I moved on with life. But I don't care about a lot. But Dave Grohl, I would love to sit down with, pick his brain, hang out, just kind of feed off of his energy. A guy that can, transform music over several decades with several different bands, most influential bands, period, and still be relevant, still be an all-around nice guy that no one has something negative to say about him, and still is defining his own craft year after year of what he does with drums and guitar and vocals and everything that he plays. Honorable mention, I guess it wasn't good enough to make it to the table, but I'm going to sneak him in at the end of the night.
Well, I can tell you, I have a friend who I worked with in the past at AOL, and I'm still friends with in Atlanta today, who looks exactly like Dave Grohl. His name is, I shouldn't say his name. Glenn is his first name. I will actually show you a few pictures of him after the podcast, and you will be shocked. This guy is Dave Grohl. This is his doppelganger.
Why don't you show them right now so that everyone listening can see?
I don't have it up on my screen. and Jack Rains, who is one of our followers, can't find the video anyway. So that's a shout out to my father, who
I saw his post.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I don't see you guys. Thankfully I can see you. You can see me, but no one wants to see us. Let's be honest. We've got.
I'm sweating all over right now. I look like a wildebeest in here.
I don't have a voice or a face for radio or TV, so no one wants to see or hear from me.
We'll have to look at him then at some point and see. I thought you were about to tell me that you knew somebody that knew Dave, and you were about to make my dreams come true, and this was going to happen, and you just went a different direction. So
no, it did.
I've seen Dave in concert. I got close to him. He ran around. This was up in Northern Virginia at Nissan Pavilion, back when it was called that. And
I lived less than 2 miles from there at one point. So our paths crossed. Yeah, I know it well.
So at Nissan Pavilion, the Foo Fighters opened up for the Chili Peppers. And Foo Fighters were destroyed. He actually went out and played the drums for the Chili Peppers as well during their set. But everybody was sitting down. I'm looking around. I'm getting into it. I love Foo. I'm into it. Dave jumps off the stage and runs every aisle, literally physically picking people up and cussing them out and telling them to stand up because it's a rock show. Just goes off on them, and it was amazing. And at that moment, I was like, that's kind of like my heartthrob, so.
No, I love when they have that type of interaction. That's what you want when you go to a show. I love the music. I love to hear them sing and play it, but I want to see them interacting with the crowd, and I want to hear them tell stories about the songs or what led to them writing that song. I love to hear the stories. Springsteen's the master at it. There's a number of great ones out there, but
or just yelling at us and cussing us out or something, just engaged in some way. And it's sad because as I was sharing that memory, I was like, oh, I'll see him again. And I don't even want to go down this rabbit hole, but not being able to go to concerts or anything right now is just kind of destroying my life, which is why we probably have people listening to this, because they're so bored out of their mind. So it's helping us.
Bored. Yes.
All right. Go ahead, man. That was my honorable mention. That was a long spew on that.
No, I have a ton of honorable mentions, but I'm going to save them just at the end and say, hey, these are folks I'd like to bring over my second night in the White House and so forth. But, so I will. I'll kick it off with 5, but I also want to caveat this because I did do something a little bit different. Because there are so many people in the history of America that are dead and alive, I decided that if I am president, and I'm going to put my name in the hat like Trump and Biden, and I think I have a good chance at winning. But I've decided to pick 5 people that are alive today. So this dream could actually come true if I win in November. All right.
Okay.
All right. So,
I like it.
It's a little different, and again, these are folks I want to have a beer with, I want to hang with, and I just want to BS with. So my number five, and I guess you could consider this an honorable mention because it's actually two people who are tied at the hip, kind of like Sonny and Cher, kind of like Captain and Tennille, and so forth. So the first person or first persons I'd have to the table at number five are the PTI cast, which is Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon. I've been watching these guys for probably 20 years on ESPN. Not 20 years; they've probably been on ESPN for 10. But I've been reading them since the 70s. They were writers for the Washington Post, sports and leisure and different things. But I have been following these guys since probably the late 70s. And then when they came on ESPN, I love their insight and their opinions on sports. And you know me, I'm a huge sports fan. And I'd love to hear some of their stories that they can't share, because there are times on the show they come out and they're like, well, I just sat down with XYZ and I can't share what he said, but I can tell you that the team's not happy with the current direction and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, these guys are well-read, very intelligent, very funny, and obviously in my wheelhouse with sports. So at number five, PTI, Tony Kornheiser, and Michael Wilbon.
Well, that was my number three. So this is off to a bad
We
start.
won't overlap. I know we won't.
All right. So that's cool. I like that. And I like I can visualize your, presidential dinner that you're setting up. Mine is at my current house, and I'm just going to invite some people over to hang out. And my number five is someone who's not alive. So I guess we're safe there, knowing what you just said. And that would be the one, Amelia Earhart. And I truly, for so many reasons. Number one, like as soon as she walks in the door, I'm gonna be like, what happened to you? Like genuinely what happened? Because there's so many theories. There's a theory that, the plane crashed and it sunk and they died or whatever. And then there was the theory that she landed on an island and it was like Castaway and she lived out the rest of her life on this island with this other guy. Nobody knows his name. And they were on this island and kind of just lived life for a while. Then there was a theory the Japanese captured her and, she was captive until they killed her. Then there was a theory that she landed on an island with a tribe and they ate her. Like, I want to know which one of those were true, and she was an interesting person. When she was a kid, she invented a tribe of imaginary small black creatures. As a little kid, a tribe of small black creatures, and she called them DJs. Like,
really?
As a kid, yeah, like just this weird little girl running around talking to the DJs, around that were following her around. She built a roller coaster in her backyard as a kid, like completely built the box, the rail, everything, built all of it. Like she was way ahead of her time with everything she did. I mean, she was glorified and like on the cover of Vogue for some of the clothes she was wearing. Like she's done so much, and then to disappear in that way is it's beyond I can't understand. And I hate for someone who was so influential in our history for there not to be so much closure. And you'll see that as a theme for a couple of the people that I chose that are no longer with us. They kind of have that same theme. There was some kind of untimely death where there was no closure. And I want them all at the table kind of swapping stories and talking about it.
That is a great pick. And she's not on my list because I mentioned all my folks are alive today. But she's on my dead list of people. And I love the fact that it's a female. But I did list 10 people that have passed away that I couldn't have at the dinner table that I'd love to have at the dinner table. But I won't reveal that until the end. I'll just roll through them real quick with no explanation. But she was on that list. I love that you brought her up. So
yeah, I just feel like she would roll in and start Shooter McGavin people, high five, and she would have a drink in her hand as soon as she came in. Yeah, and just like there's something about her, and I've asked this question so many times in my life, like, what happened? What happened to this woman? And we can't figure this out. And we have all these different stories. So with love for her, as soon as she comes in, I need her to tell me that story, and then she can have a drink and just kind of chill and just hang out with everybody.
Great number five. And like I said, had it been dead folks, I would have had her at my table as well. So nice job.
I might invite you over.
All right. I'll just come over and just stalk everybody. I'll just watch victims of dead people. I see dead people, right? So, all right. So my number 4, I'm going to stick with who the people I want to talk to and find out and see what they lived through and what they've experienced in life. And my number 4 is Hank Aaron. Now, Hank Aaron, as everyone knows, is actually the home run king. I don't care about Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
We all know that Barry Bonds was a steroid freak. He went from a skinny 175 rookie to 225 big bulbous head guy with, too many home runs. But Hank Aaron did it the right way. He did it the natural way. A couple cool things about Hank. First off, we think it was a lot of fun for him to chase down Babe Ruth. Well, I can tell you that he does a lot of interviews here in Atlanta where I live, and he actually experienced a lot of grief, pain, obviously threats, because he was an African American, and taking over Babe Ruth's spot was tormenting him and every white person in the world, and they were threatening him. So what we thought was a great celebration as he hit 715 was really a sad time for him. He tells some great stories about it, and his stories about baseball are incredible. There's one that I want to share, and then one quick stat about him. I won't bore everybody, but when Hank Aaron first went to the I believe it was the Milwaukee Braves, that was his first team, which became the Atlanta Braves, he actually batted cross-handed. And he had power cross-handed. And if you think about swinging a baseball bat when your arms are backwards, you would break your wrist. But if you look at Hank Aaron, his wrists are as big as most people's biceps. He's just a big man. So interestingly enough, they had to switch his whole batting style to do so. But the last thing I'll say about him, and he is a fascinating guy and a great interview. They do it a lot on Fox Sports during the Braves game. But he had 755 home runs. If you take away every home run he hit, he still batted 290 for his career, and he still had over 3,000 hits. 3,000 hits is an anomaly as it is. He did it if you take away all 755 home runs. So amazing man, great stories. He should be honored to be the home run king. It's not Barry Bonds, it's Hank Aaron. So I'd love to have him there and tell me about what he faced and the true stories that happened behind the scenes of being a black man in America at that time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a great pick. I don't have him on my list or anything else, but I think that that's kind of perfect. So on there. So number 4 for me, that's what we're on right now, right?
Correct.
All right. Number 4, kind of along the same theme here, is someone who died tragically. And I want to kind of learn about them, but there's this mysticism to this person, and that's Robert Johnson. And so quick backstory, because a lot of people may have heard the name but don't know him quite. So quick backstory, Robert Johnson was a guitar player and a singer, specifically blues, Delta blues, back in the 20s. He's now known as probably the most influential blues musician of all time. He's always in the top 5 guitarists of all time. Interesting story about Robert Johnson is he was awful at playing guitar. Awful. Like, that was not his thing. He wasn't able, he would get up in between sets at some of these Mississippi Delta little clubs. He would get up in between sets when the real players were done playing and start playing the guitar, and they would boo him off stage. Awful. So they said one day he disappeared for like a month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know the time. I'm just going to make up a time frame. He disappears. He comes back. He picks up the guitar. They said his fingers had grown, like just enormous, like freakishly long. His fingers had grown since he come back. Everything about him looked different. And he picked up the guitar and he played it in ways that nobody had ever heard before. And so that's where the story goes, that he sold his soul to the devil for guitar skills. And then other songs and things have been created since then about him and about, that moment and whatnot. But the interesting thing was, he only recorded 29 songs. He only recorded his album within a year of his death. And he died at 27. And this is the part that's even more interesting, is there's so many different accounts and stories about how he died. But the one that most people go with is he was in a club or in a bar, and he was kind of just macking on this girl. And her boyfriend was there. Whether he was a bartender or not, I'm not sure. But her boyfriend gave him a beer or whiskey or some kind of drink, and it was poison. She knocked it out of his hand and was like, "You don't take drinks from strangers, and he's like, woman, I'll do whatever I want. Grabbed another one, drank it. It was poison, and he died violently. Supposedly, that's the main story. He died at 27. He was the original member of the 27 Club. Very interesting story around this man. There's only 3 known photographs of him. I have his complete collection on record. Like, listen to the songs. They're very eerie. They're haunting. He talks about the devil in a lot of them. He talks about a crossroads and how he went there. And he almost tells you that story. And I feel there's some kind of belief in that. And people shared real life experiences of meeting him before and after, and just that he was a completely different person. Maybe it's drugs, who knows, but like for your fingers to grow. So.
No, it's a great story. And actually, I saw a movie on Netflix about him, and it might have been called Crossroads. And don't quote me on that piece. But as you stated, he disappeared, came back, and was magical. So who knows what happens? But it is a fascinating story. I'm glad you picked him. I've known Jeff for a while now, and I know that Jeff and his wife have actually written a script about this. Called Arcadia. I'd love for you just to fill the fans in on that real quick, if you don't mind, Jeff.
Yeah, sure. And before I started, I'll say a minute ago, before I started on Robert Johnson, there was like an awkward pause before I started talking, and I'm not going to cut it out, but my youngest Rooney walked in, so I was trying to like distract her while I was doing this. Anyway, the luxury of coronavirus right now, and being in a closet at home. Arcadia is a TV show that my wife came up with and that we wrote together, that we are trying to pitch and push out there. But it deals with Robert Johnson as almost the main character, Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, several others, and it's all related to the 27 Club, or those who died tragically young. And it's set in the 90s, and it's got super cool like 90s teen vibes, but it's also these reincarnated musicians, and there's this whole area of it where we're trying to recreate their music and do it in modern times so people can enjoy it over again. But there's a cool storyline to it. So if anybody out there listening has the connects on anybody anywhere, because it's the most difficult thing in the world, we'll get like 15 steps forward, meeting somebody, they'll want to see our show Bible or read the pilot script, and then they disappear forever. So if anybody knows anything that wants to get this thing going, let's talk.
Yeah, and that was completely unplanned. Like I said, we don't know our top 5, but listen, I've read the script. I've had my daughters, who are teenagers and early 20s, read the script, and they absolutely loved it. I am hoping that someone picks up on this show, but I digress. Let's get back to our top 5. But if you do get a chance, check out Arcadia.
This episode was brought by Arcadia. So that was our first sponsor ever. So
beautiful. So I'm back. We're back now to the top 5. I'm at number 3. I've already got my friends from PTI and Hank Aaron sitting there talking sports, but we need a little levity in the room. And one of my childhood favorites to listen to on LP, on records, I actually bought his stand-up comedy act, was Steve Martin. Still alive today. Loved Steve Martin. I would steal his jokes from his album, go to school, tell them nobody really listened to the album, so they all thought I was funny. I was just stealing Steve's stuff. But I'd love to sit down with him. I love, obviously his roles on Saturday Night Live, Two Wild and Crazy Guys, and some other things that he did there. But some of his movies are absolute classics, right? I loved The Jerk. And if you haven't seen The Jerk, you've got to see The Jerk. It's old. It's probably late 70s. Obviously, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is another one. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, who it didn't do well at the box office, but the storyline is fabulous. But anyway, Steve Martin, very talented guy, very funny guy. In fact, he's also a magician, which he learned when he worked at Disneyland, working in the magic store at Disneyland on Main Street. So multi-talented guy who also plays the banjo, actually has a Grammy on a song that he wrote on the banjo. So I'd love to have him in the room just to lighten the mood up a little bit.
That's cool. And yeah, one of the most underappreciated films I've ever watched was Bowfinger, with him and Eddie Murphy, and it was such a great film that I don't know if a lot of people have seen it, or it's worth watching though, for sure.
It is. He's a great one. So I want to have him there for the fun.
Well, it's interesting. My number three is similar to your number three for some of the same reasons, and that was for somebody to lighten the mood. I mean, so far I got Robert Johnson and I got Amelia Earhart, who both mysteriously died, and having them share their stories might be a little bit depressing, but this guy's going to lighten it up for us. He's still alive today, and that is Bill Murray. And Bill Murray, to me, is one of those dudes that he's almost like a Dave Grohl in the sense, like, just can do no wrong, you know, and just looking at him, you laugh. Like, you legitimately laugh by looking at this guy. And his films, he's done everything. I mean, one of the things I learned about him years ago that was just, I'm sure it's kind of common knowledge now, but still blows my mind when you watch Caddyshack.
Oh, Mrs. Green. Oh, Mrs. Green.
The fact that he improvised every single line in that film, because it was supposed to be a really small part. They realized there's something with this guy. Let's just let him roll and see what happens. And he did, and he became the star of that movie. I mean, just that's who you quote. That's to me was, it's just beyond to think the talent that he was on this set, supposed to have this small role, and he just ran with it and did his own thing and almost produced it himself, so to speak, and wrote it himself.
That's a great pick. Yeah, that's a great pick. I like that.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's a couple other facts about him that I learned today researching, but he got tired of dealing with his agents. He just was fed up with it, that he set up an automated 800 number.
Yeah. You can
Do you
call
remember
it.
that?
No, and he still has
Is it still there?
You can actually call it today and say, "Hey, Bill, I want you to come to my event." He may or may not come to it, and he still shows up at these random weddings and
yes, and
yeah,
parties
yeah.
and stuff. He does. He crashes people's parties.
Yes.
Like, he'll go to their house and wash their dishes. And I love watching him back when you could at any Cubs game. I mean, he's the guy that you watch. He's the one that all the Cubs fans, you know, want to see, especially when they were with their World Series year. He was the man everybody was kind of tying themselves around. So just an overall good dude. I hope that there's not a Bill Cosby in him or something else that we learn later in life that kind of ruins that image. But for now, there's not. So I appreciate Bill Murray, and he's going to be eating at my table, and he's going to be making life much better for the other two who are going to be kind of depressed there. So
that is a great pick, and another SNL alumni. So we actually did overlap there, which kind of surprises me. But yeah, that scene in his shack with Chevy Chase, where Chevy hit into his shack where Bill Murray lived during the movie. Just a classic movie. I can't say enough about it. I love that pick, and he didn't come to mind until you said it. Hats off, dude. That's a great one.
Yeah, good dude.
So number two, you know, I've already had a couple sports folks there. I've had a comedian there. I want someone, and this is, you know, I hate to bring politics into any conversation, but I wanted to have someone from that spectrum, that realm, at my table with me, right? And I think about the presidents that are still alive, from Jimmy Carter to Clinton to Obama, obviously Trump and Bush and so forth. And I which one do I want to have a beer with? And I picked one because it's the person I want to have a beer with, not for political reasons. There's nothing behind it, but what I know about this person, and it's Barack Obama. And I'll tell you why. Again, this is not political. This is not Republican versus Democrat, red versus blue. He's just a cool guy, right? You know, when he would get off the plane, he didn't stumble downstairs. He walked like an athlete. He always picked his picks for the March Madness. He always unveiled his entire board. He would reveal his full picks. If somebody asked him about his sports connections, he would talk about anything and everything sports related. Yet, on top of his knowledge of sports, obviously the guy is incredibly smart. And I would like to have him at a table and say, okay, listen, it stays within these four walls. A lot of conspiracy theories out there, a lot of things that are going on. Tell me what you really know as an ex-president of the United States. So not only do I get to enjoy him and his coolness, I get to find out about all this classified stuff and what he really thinks about folks from, let's say, from Jimmy Carter, who he knows well, all the way up to Trump, and get that behind the walls and see what he tells me. But I wanted to get outside the sports field there a little bit and outside comedy, but he brings a little bit of both, because he was always very funny at the what is the press conference that they have for the presidents. He was always very funny at that.
And State of the Union and all that too.
Well, the State of the Union, he wasn't too funny.
I guess he was more serious.
It's like
on
the
those,
press corps.
but...
Yeah, it's the annual thing.
Oh, yeah, the one where they do the jokes and all that.
Exactly, and he's got the humor, he's got the looks, he's got the coolness, he's got the brains, he's got the sports background. So I got to have Barack with me as well. So that's my number 2.
Well, lucky for you, I know a guy I used to work with at AOL who looks just like him. His name is Ron. And he looks just like him, and I can introduce you guys.
Well, good. Now we have 2 doppelgangers from the show.
From AOL.
And just so you know, that was the only person I thought we might overlap, because there's no way we'll overlap on my number 1. But so if he's not on your list, we're golden, man.
No, he's not on my list. Not that I don't want to meet the guy or have him over for dinner, but he just didn't cut it on this list for people. So far I have 2 dead people that died mysteriously, tragically, a guy who's alive who is humorous and will be funny. Now we're going back to the dead guy who died mysteriously or just died tragically, and that's Kurt Cobain. And I would love to reunite him and Dave Grohl at this dinner so they can hang out again. But there's so much about Kurt, and I've talked about it several times when we've talked about Nirvana and some of the elements on this show, where it changed me as a kid listening to the music, and kind of my vibe and my understanding of music and my desire to learn more about music was based on things that Kurt wrote or did. And it was a tragic day when he passed away. I think it's still skeptical. Actually, my daughter Carly and I will talk about this. She's obsessed with Nirvana and all things Kurt, and she firmly believes that Courtney Love killed him. And there's a lot of reason there to believe that she would have, money being one of those, but a lot of other reasons, that one of them being she's just completely crazy. And if she's listening to this right now, you're completely crazy. And
we know she's listening. We know Courtney is listening.
Of course she is. Tom Arnold got her to listen. They're boys like that. But Kurt was a weird dude, man. I mean, he struggled with depression and stuff, so I give it that, some of that side of it. But very instrumental in the change of rock music, and just to find a new sound completely. I don't know what kind of party this is going to be, because there were times where he admitted to spending over $100 a day on heroin for, days, months, years at a time. So maybe this party's going to change up at my house, this dinner. I don't know what he's bringing to the table per se. But a couple of facts about him. Nevermind, which was their breakthrough album. It wasn't their first, but the one that really was Smells Like Teen Spirit and all those songs that really broke them as, a mainstream artist. He recorded that while he was homeless, that album. And the struggle was really there with him. Like he really came from not a whole lot, worked his way to it, but didn't care about any of that at all. Just didn't. I bought his journals and things like that and read through to try to get in his mind. But yeah, just a interesting kind of guy. He actually had an imaginary friend as well. So him and Amelia can talk about this. But he had a friend named Boda. But Boda was his evil friend, for his evil side of his personality. So I don't know if that's going to hang out with her DJs or not.
What's your favorite Nirvana song? What is it? And then I have to know what Carly's is as well. So
I don't know if I know Carly's, because hers changes all the time. Territorial Pissings is one of my favorite, as far as when I just want to cut something on and I'm angry at the world and want to listen. And that's sometimes my go-to. But honestly, this is very cliche, but there is not one Nirvana song that I've ever heard that I don't like. And that's on any of their albums, Bleach, Incesticide, like some of the early ones that people don't really listen to. I don't not like a song. But I will say this, the last thing I wanted to say, and this may go towards Suicide. Their last album they released, In Utero, was right before he so-called killed himself, and he wanted to name the album, and they voted against in the band, I Hate Myself and Want to Die. Like, that's literally what he wanted to call it moving forward. So I think we would have looked at that album completely different if that ended up being the name for it. So, but yeah, I don't know Carly's, because she's a die hard fan, where I don't know if she could choose one or not. I mean, yeah, the David Bowie cover he did with MTV Unplugged album that they have. I mean, there's there's a couple songs he did that were just insane. But I don't know. Territorial Pissings is what keeps coming to my mind right now that my go-to for stuff.
Well, for the record, I knew he was going to be on your list. I knew it just because of the Arcadia script. I had a feeling he was going to be there, so it doesn't surprise me. And yes, I do agree that Courtney Love is the modern day Yoko Ono. She's the reason why he's no longer around, just like John Lennon. Yoko drove him crazy enough to walk outside and get shot. So got to blame both the women in that.
We were just having this conversation like 2 nights ago. So one of the things we do at home in the evenings is we get around as a family and we'll watch YouTube music videos, and everybody has to pick one, and we all have to watch them. And we that way the kids are exploring older music, new music, and we're trying to understand what it is. And there's a video, I don't know what song it is, and it's John Lennon and Yoko's beside him on the piano. I can't think of the song, but she's beside him on the piano, and like he's just playing, this is John Lennon, right?
Yeah.
And the whole time she's just straight faced and won't even like acknowledge. And at the end, he's almost asked her, like, is it good? And she kind of gives him a shrug. And I think that was part of it. Like they wanted that on purpose. But I do parallel. This is funny. We were just talking about Courtney Love to Yoko. Like I really believe both of those ladies had something to do, whether it was direct or indirect, with their death. Truly did. And drove them crazy.
Agree with that. And I can say this. I am a better singer than Yoko Ono. I have heard her song. That squealing is the worst I've ever heard. But enough about Yoko.
Well, John Lennon didn't make our list so far, so that's
he
interesting.
Did not, and he can't make mine because I am all my folks are alive, right? So I'm going to go down to my number one here, and this is a listen. I love sports, and I grew up in the DC area. There's a lot of great sports people up there. But there's one that really resonates with my youth through my adulthood. And every day I turned on the TV and or radio, because back in the day, every baseball game wasn't on TV. But Cal Ripken has to be at the table with me. I am a huge Cal Ripken fan. I've got to meet him a couple of different times. But his game streak, everyone knows about his game streak. So I'm not going to harp on that. That's pretty basic to know that he's played more games than anyone. But he also had 2 consecutive inning streaks that are longer than anyone else's consecutive inning streak. So not only did he have one at 82-64, but he had another inning streak that he went over 5,000 innings. No one has beaten either one of those 2 records. And the interesting thing about it, what separates those 2 inning streaks is 2 innings. And who broke that streak but his dad? His dad was his manager. And his dad pulled him out when they were losing to Toronto. I think it was like 20-4. And in the 7th inning, his dad pulled him out of the game. Actually, he was the manager for all of 21 games, broke the streak. And they asked Cal Sr. after the game, why did you pull Cal out? It didn't make any sense. It's 2 innings. He said, well, I didn't feel he was going to hit a 20-run home run, so gave him a couple innings off. And that was the difference between him having basically 13,000 straight innings versus 82 and 56. So what I'd like to really talk to him about, and of course, when I met him, I was in awe, so I didn't have a chance to ask many questions except, here, will you sign this, and can you take a picture with me? But he played in an era of steroids, and with McGuire and Sosa and Bonds, and Cal came out untarnished. He was not that type of player. He was never all beefed up, and I'd love to know what he thought about those folks at the time and even today. But the last thing I'll say about him, and this is one thing that everybody talks, yes, he wasn't the greatest baseball player. He wasn't the greatest shortstop, wasn't the greatest hitter, didn't have the most home runs. But one year he had over 680 balls hit at him during the regular season, 680. And he made only 3 errors, meaning he made either 2 bad throws and 1 missed a ground ball. But those numbers are off the charts. Some people make 3 errors in an inning, and I saw one recently. But just my idol growing up as a baseball player, just showing up every day and always competing. So that rounds out my top 5. A lot of sports stuff there, but if I'm president, that's what I'm going to do, man.
You're going to have who you want. And
exactly.
Honestly, he's a great character and a great role model in sports, and I like that. I like that pick for sure. Sadly, I have him as my number 1, and I have nothing more to add.
I know that's not true.
It's not. I'm not as passionate about Cal Ripken Jr. As you are, and I appreciate that. Though I'm just wondering if I'll get invited over to your, dinner over there while you're the president, or if we won't be doing this show anymore.
Of course, I need someone to clean up. So
Well, that's what Bill Murray's for, man. That's what he comes over for. All right. So my number one. All right. So I had 3 kind of sad stories, mysterious deaths. And then I threw in a Bill Murray, and now I'm going to throw in another type of Bill Murray, because we got to make this party just live, and I need this dinner to just be interesting. And this person is going to get all of the answers out of these other people that I'm looking for. He will know how to do it, and he'll do it in a way that will make me completely laugh and feel completely uncomfortable. And it's Larry David.
Larry David. Great choice.
Larry David I would have dinner with that guy any time of life. I would do anything to meet Larry David and be a part of his day. I just want to chill with him one day and go through his routine. And I feel like you do that in Curb Your Enthusiasm. You get that voyeur, approach of his life, because it really genuinely is how he is as a person. And I'm reading a book right now that Megan got me about some of the behind the scenes of Seinfeld. And Larry David is Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm, is George on Seinfeld. And, some of the things, Saturday Night Live connection again, he was there maybe a year, and then he quit. And he showed back up, just like the Seinfeld episode that mimicked. He showed back up on Monday after he quit and acted like it didn't happen at SNL. Literally showed up. Remember when George did that at his job too? He just showed back up, but literally quit SNL, got frustrated, and then was like, "Oh, I need that job again. I'm gonna go back and act like this didn't happen." He was the type of dude when he would do any stand-up, if the crowd was assholes or said something he didn't like or were talking when he was talking, he would just get up and leave, in the middle of the set. Kind of a guy. And if you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, if you ever watch Seinfeld at all, and if you don't watch either of those shows, then stop listening to us right now, because most of the references and things we make are that. And I can say that because we had 7 listeners this time, right, and I can afford to lose one if we need to. So Larry David, I think, would round out the night. I would love to see him with Amelia Earhart. I'd love to see him beside Bill Murray, and what would happen with those two together. I don't know what Kurt Cobain would do with them, but Larry David would be my ride or die with dinner, or anything in life. So that's my dude.
No, that's a great pick, and I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. I think it's genius how it's done. I love shows without laugh tracks, and that was one of the first ones that came out that didn't have it, and just his, just the way he gets himself into trouble in that show was classic. And of course, Seinfeld, the show, he was one of the co-creators, I believe. So great choice, great top 5. He was on. So here's my honorable mentions. I know we're running out of time, and our sponsor, who we'll announce later, probably wants us to end this, but I did have a few honorable mentions. All of them are alive that I wanted to have there. Larry David and Seinfeld, both of them made the list. Okay. Springsteen, Adam Duritz from the Counting Crows. Now, here's the last 2 I will say, because I think you want to have them there just to ask them questions. OJ and Cosby, right? So what the were you thinking, Bill Cosby? You were America's father. Everyone loved you. It didn't matter if you were white or black. And then you're out there drugging people the whole time. But, to have OJ there just to say, man, I loved watching you run when I was a kid. Then you go ahead and cut off 2 heads. Dude, what were you thinking? Of course, he didn't do it. We all know he's innocent. He's still looking but I want them there as well. So those were my honorable mentions, man. The alive ones. I have a whole dead list, but I won't bore everybody with the Lincolns and MLKs and Washingtons of the world. But OJ and Cosby, that'd be a great little mix to a table.
I think it would, and I'd love to have Larry David at that table with them for sure.
Yeah.
Completely with both of them, because he would be uncensored, and it would be amazing to get some of the feedback. I stood there when you said watch OJ run. I went immediately to not football days, but to that chase.
Oh, the chase. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And it makes me laugh to think, number one, we all remember where we were when you watched it and you turned your TV on, and that was literally on every channel. But do you remember how slow this chase was?
10 miles an hour on the highway. I think it was Interstate 5, right?
Yeah, it was so ridiculous. Just ridiculous of a chase. Like the whole thing was just, and it's sad. We laugh about it. People died, unfortunately. I mean, he murdered people. So
Allegedly.
Oh, whatever. But it's like a whole channel stemmed out of it with Court TV, which became True TV. So the Practical Jokers have them to think about that. I don't know, man. That'd be interesting. I like that. I'm hung up on that. And Bill Cosby, I would love to find that out too. I mean, was he always that person?
Right.
That we know who he is now?
Yep.
You know, and his facade was the dad for everybody. You know, and he's a great actor. We know that. And so was he acting as this genuine person all these years?
He was funny. He was very funny. He had a great stand-up. Obviously, Cosby Show was pretty good. It was groundbreaking. It actually portrayed a very wealthy, upscale black family. I love that. And then 20 years later, we find out that he's drugging everybody on the set.
Yeah, everybody. If
I had to pick, okay, so here's a question for you. If you had to pick and you could only have Cosby or OJ at the table, which one do you want to talk to?
Cosby. I don't think he would hurt me. And so OJ roughed some people up. I mean, that's what he got arrested for years ago, is going in there and roughing some people up who apparently stole some of his memorabilia and things like that. So he's I want Cosby. I want him at the dinner. So just for out of fear of my life. And if OJ is listening right now, which he probably is.
Probably is. I think he was number 4, the 4th listener we had.
We'll have him on next. No, I like this, man. I like these top 5 with these people. This is our dinner parties. I might invite you. I was talking to Megan about it before, and she said, if you don't put me as your number 1, then why are we even married? I have dinner with her every night. So
yeah, they're boring. My wife is boring too.
She's gonna be there with me, like, you know.
Yeah, she's got to make the sandwiches.
I didn't say it.
No, you did not. I didn't say it either. That was my doppelganger.
So yeah, man. So episode 7 in the books. This was just our top 5 plus some change. Some people we want to hang out with, have some dinner and a milkshake. Hopefully a strawberry one. And until the next episode, we hope that all you guys enjoy life and stay safe and listen to our other episodes again, over and over again.
Love it. Out of here.
All right. We're done.
Milkshake.